A seat. We are in week what? I wrote it down. Week 6 of a sermon series titled what? Thank you, 8 of you. Wow. Do I have to go walk out again? Can I do the prayer again? That's going to seem manufactured. No. Week 6 of a sermon series titled I don't know why I'm so fired up. I really don't, because it doesn't match the vibe of the topic, which is rest. Maybe because I got good rest last night. I slept like a tight 8. I'm not even kidding. That's unusual for me. 8 hours. So you guys get the result. And so my title for today is this. Jesus, read it with me. Jesus is rest. Do you believe that? Do you believe it? There's going to be 2 parts to this series. The story behind it and how we can actually apply this to our life. Jesus is rest. There is an entire section in Mark on this topic. It spans a lot of verses, like chapter 2, go over there, but we're going to read a little bit beyond that and then come back to it, and then we're going to apply it at the end. Sound like a plan? Hope so. So here's the Bible story behind it. Like I said, this entire section is on rest, and the fact that Jesus is rest, and how we can actually put that to work in our life. That's not a funny joke, how we can put rest to work. I get it, what I said. But how can we do that? And believe it or not, when Jesus claims that he is rest, it ultimately is the reason that everyone turns against him and begins to plot and murder him. So it's got to probably be a big deal. When Jesus says, I am rest, or I am the Sabbath, it really makes the higher-ups a little uneasy. Specifically, if you flip ahead a little bit in chapter 3 to verse 6, I just want to kind of highlight that. We'll hit it again, but we kind of have to know the crowd that he's talking to here. And it says in chapter 3, verse 6, the Pharisees went out and immediately held counsel with the Herodians against him, how to destroy him. They don't like it. They don't like it. They don't like anything, honestly, but they're the perennial bad guys in the New Testament. I get that. They don't like it. Also, what's really super interesting is that these 2 groups, what are the 2 groups? We just read them. They might still be on the screen. The Pharisees and the Herodians, they weren't friends. They didn't get along at all. Herodians were supporters of who? Herod, and he was the worst of the worst. He presents the Roman occupation of Israel. He did everything he could to stamp out Jewish belief and Jewish culture. He was against that at every turn that he could possibly find. And then he would put stuff in like, hey, if you want to have multiple sex partners, you know what? You go for it. If you want to have idols everywhere, that's your prerogative. Just don't follow that. That was kind of his whole MO, right? No problem. He was the biggest opposition to Jewish culture. Now, what are the Pharisees? Their main game was to stand for Jewish culture. Like, we want to maintain that. We want to have everything. Tradition, tradition, tradition. If you like musicals, tradition, tradition. Okay, I had to, I'm sorry. So they were like, let's keep it the way it is. So we have a group of people who are doing everything they can to stamp out Jewish culture that are now best friends with a group of people that have given their entire life to maintaining Jewish culture. What could possibly bring these 2 together? Jesus, just in kind of a weird way, right? Jesus brings people together in very weird ways. And these 2 have been meeting together now, and here's what they're saying. We have to make a plot, we have to come up with a plan on how we can get rid of Jesus. And they eventually will murder him. All because Jesus says, I am rest. I'm it. Now, it's not the first time he said something like that really miffed them, okay? Remember last week, if you were here last week, what did he say? I can forgive sin. Do you remember that? Oh, that didn't sit well. What do you mean you can forgive sin? You can't forgive sin. They don't like that either. That would be like Jesus saying, I forgive sin. It'd be like if Anthony and Bert here got in a fight, okay? Just for whatever reason, they broke out in a fight. And one of them bloodied the other guy's lip. I'm not going to say who. You got the reach, but I think he's got the... Okay, what? Doesn't matter. Okay, and they're fighting, and they're just down on the ground, just boom, 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 boom. And I walk up on this fight, and I'm like, oh, my goodness, guys, it's okay. I forgive you. Would that make you mad if you were the one fighting? You'd be like, he punched me. Oh, I know. I forgive him. It's like, no. He punched me. I forgive you. It's okay. That's what Jesus did in that case. You're the one that forgave. He didn't sin against you. What Jesus is saying is that every sin is ultimately against him, and therefore he is the one who is to forgive. Now, that don't mean these two don't need to make up and high five and hug it out. It doesn't mean that. What he's saying is, I am able to forgive sin. And then he's going to kick it up a notch. Not only that, I am rest. That's what he's saying. Our sin, regardless of the target, is ultimately against Jesus, against God, against the Holy Spirit. And so he and he alone holds forgiveness in his hand. And from what I can tell, the more I get to know him, he freely gives it. That's beautiful. So that didn't make the religious guys in attendance super hype. I'll just be honest with you. Then they started really watching him. This guy says he can forgive sins. What else can he do? So then Jesus does this, and what I'm about to read you, they go bananas. They go bananas over this. In chapter 2, verse 13, he says, he went out again beside the sea, and all the crowd was coming to him. That is typical. And he was teaching them. That is also typical. And as he passed by, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, sitting in the tax booth. And he said to him, follow me, which means what? When Jesus says follow me, what does he mean? To actually follow him, to actually do it. And so he did, and he rose and followed him. Now remember, he uses that term, follow me. It means something. For many of you, Jesus said, follow me, and you actually are following Jesus. You're doing what he says. You're obeying him. Come with me. You're going to do things you never thought you could do. That's what he's saying. And this is in front of that group of people that is now watching him like a hawk. What do you mean? He gets to call people to himself now? They don't like that. Maybe they were even a little jealous. Maybe you'd be a little jealous. I don't know. Why is he calling that guy? Why isn't he calling me? Maybe because, remember, he can also hear your heart. So then to push it home, he does this. I almost hate to read it. It's scandalous. It's scandalous. You get ready. You ready? Big Bible scandal inbound. You ready? And as he reclined at table in his house, many tax collectors and sinners, oh my goodness, and many tax collectors and sinners were reclining with Jesus and his disciples. What? He did what? That's how they would have thought that. He did what? For there were many who followed him, and the scribes and the Pharisees, when they saw that he was eating with sinners and tax collectors, said to his disciples, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? They can't handle this. You are doing everything we're not supposed to do. Eating with sinners. What's wrong with you? Why would you do that? And when Jesus heard it, because he hears everything, he said to them, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick, I came to call the righteous, but sinners. Oh my goodness, this is a big deal. Jesus was so sure of his mission that he did things like this. You remember way back 6 weeks ago, I said, the book of Mark is in your face. This is Jesus right there. He is in your face, but in all the right ways. He's saying, I will show you the mission. What is the mission? Doctors don't come to help healthy people. That's the mission. Does that mean, okay, Pastor Mark, does that mean we need to have a church that looks like the world so that, folks that are deep in the world, when they come in here, they'll feel comfortable? No, that's silly. Why would we do that? It means, though, we want to create a place to be, and I don't want to confuse the two, but we're going to create a place to be, and you're going to come in here, and this is just church, by the way. This is like one aspect of your life, but you want to create a place to be that people that aren't following Jesus, that you're following, will actually want to get to know you, and then they will discover that what Jesus has done in your life, he can do in their life. That's the mission Jesus is on. It means that we must understand the mission, and my whole point today is this, is Jesus is rest. And that's more controversial than we think it is. Jesus is rest. Sick people need help. So we want to give them the rest of Jesus. I know that. I get it. Jesus saves. And so am I standing in the way of somebody getting saved by Jesus because they're not doing it the way I think they should do it? Or am I peeling back the ceiling so I can get my friends to Jesus? Because the religious folks here, they're noticing and they have some questions, and honestly, they have some valid questions. They want to know, like, hey, why are they doing things that we're not doing? Why are they doing it differently than we are? In a moment, they're going to say, why aren't they fasting when we're fasting? Which that's a legitimate question. You imagine if we did a church-wide fast, which we will. We've done them a lot. We'll do them again. We'll do one this fall. We do a church-wide fast, and like day 3, you drive by the new hamburger place. What's it called? Yeah, you all know what it's called. Don't act like you don't know. I can't remember the name. Shake Shack. You knew it immediately. And what if you saw me sitting outside? Double, cheese, French fry, shake in the middle. What if you saw me out there? Would you have a valid question by saying, now wait just a minute? How come you call all of us to fast, but you're up at the Shake Shack? That's a valid question. But I'm not Jesus. I'm not Jesus. So listen to his answer. We kind of set the story. John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting, okay? Not eating at the Shake Shack. And people came and said to him, why do John's disciples and the disciples of the Pharisees fast, but your disciples don't fast? And Jesus said to them, brilliant answer, by the way, can the wedding guests fast while the bridegroom is with them? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they can't fast. The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast in that day. No one sews a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment. If he does, the patch tears away from it, the new from the old, and a worse tear is made. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, what happens? The wine will burst the skins, and the wine is destroyed, and so are the skins. But new wine is for fresh wineskins. Now, I will readily admit that they would have all known exactly what he was talking about. But for us, we're like, what are you saying? I got the bridegroom part, but then you started talking about sowing and fermented grape. Like, what does that got to do with anything? A lot. It has a lot to do with anything. Here, he goes along with everything he's saying. Okay, just for the side of it. Fermented juice, it expands, right? So you can't put grape juice in an old wineskin that's already expanded, because then it'll expand, and what it'll do, it'll burst. Which is what will happen to me if I keep going to Shake Shack as often as that, right? Like, that's just going to happen, right? What he's saying is you put new wine into new wineskins so that they can actually grow with it. And Jesus was making a very specific point about John the Baptist. He was saying, John the Baptist was here to do something, and I'm here to do something completely new. Completely new. So if John or anyone else tried to make sense of what he's doing through the lens of what they used to do, it won't make sense. That's what he's telling them. He's saying through Jesus, God was redeeming the world to himself. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. And if people expected this to look familiar or to just look like it always looked, they will miss it. They will miss it. In a very succinct way, Jesus is showing them that there is an entirely different way of doing things when Jesus is here. Predominantly that Jesus saves. And if you try to put that through the lens of what they were all holding fast, or maybe what some of you are holding fast, it won't work. And so when they see things that they don't like, they got questions. He is certainly not saying that fasting is wrong. He himself fasts. Jesus fasts. His disciples will fast. He is saying the way you do it, though, is going to be very different. You certainly don't fast at a wedding. And don't be fooled here by the religious. Don't be fooled here. They just don't like the way he's doing it. Do you ever have some ministry that's super successful and other people, they see the results, but they don't like it because they don't like the way you're doing it? It isn't necessarily the results. They maybe see it, but they don't like the way you're doing it. Hey, there's people that don't like the way we do this. I'm fine with that. I've gotten over it. And then he continues on with, honestly, where the meat hits the plate for us today. He talks about the Sabbath. And this is where he sends them off. 23. One Sabbath, he was going through the grain fields. Remember, on the Sabbath, they didn't work. They didn't do anything. One Sabbath, he was going through the grain fields, and as they made their way, his disciples began to pluck heads of grain. And the Pharisees were saying that. You notice they're always around. You ever notice that? You ever notice Pharisees are always watching? You know, you got Pharisees. You got people in your life who are always watching you. Why are you doing it like that? You know, why are you doing it like that? You know, I don't want to help you, but I want to watch you. Okay, sorry. Look, Why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath? And he said to them, because he always hears them, have you never read what David did when he was in need and was hungry, he and those who were with him, how he entered the house of God in the time of Abiathar the high priest and ate the bread of the presence, which it is not lawful for any but the priests to eat, and also gave it to those who were with him. And he said to him, ready? The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. And this is where he really got serious. This is exactly what I've been talking about, okay? This is the new way of looking at it. He's about to drop that on him. Again, he entered the synagogue, and a man with a withered hand, and they watched Jesus. There was a man there with a withered hand, to see whether he would heal him on the Sabbath. Again, what are they doing? Always watching. They're always watching, so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man with the withered hand, come here. And he said to them, it is lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do harm, to save life or to kill. And they were silent, because they don't know. They don't know anymore. He's turning their world upside down. And he looked around at them with anger. Jesus is getting a little ticked. And he said to them, stretch out your hand. He stretched it out, and his hand was restored. Hallelujah, right? That's it. That's the whole gospel. He came to heal the sick, to give sight to the blind, to make the slaves not slaves anymore, to free the bond. That's what he's here to do. And the Pharisees went out and immediately held counsel with their mortal enemy and said, we need to kill this man. All because of that. You heard it, right? Because the Sabbath is, why was Jesus so mad? I'll tell you why. The Sabbath is about restoring health. It's about restoring the diminished. It's about bringing life where there's death. That is what the Sabbath is. It is about repairing the broken. But they can't see the forest for the trees. They can't see what is right in front of them. They are so concerned with their tradition and their reputation that every single one of them missed that Jesus is rest and he's standing in front of us. They missed the groom at the wedding. That's tough to do. That's tough to do. Standing right in front of them. So what they do is they say, we have got to get rid of him. Now, we're hard on these Pharisees. I'm hard on them. But we do this too. We do this too. We miss it. We miss it completely because we're so caught up in living our life the way we've always lived it that we completely miss it. Listen, I will say this. Most people, not all, but most people believe there's some sort of God, at least, right? They may say they're atheist. I get that. I respect people when they say that. But I want to say, well, I got some questions I ask, and they got some questions. We have great conversations when I meet somebody like that. Really. We're not fighting. None of that. I'm just curious, But most people do that. Maybe they even believe in the one true God. That's fine. I get that. And then that we see that. I believe in the God that's in the Bible and in all of history. And maybe even some of you that would say, yes, I follow Jesus, but I miss the part where he is rest. Because I think, and I live my life, I follow Jesus like this. I think that I can earn my way into Jesus' love. I think that if I'm a really good boy, he will love me and give me treats. That's what we think. And if I follow his commandments, then he will give me more. No show of hands, but some of us live our life that way. Not even all the time, but we cycle in and out of that. And so God says, rest. God says, Jesus is rest. God says, take a Sabbath. That's tough for us. And so even sometimes we can misapply the Sabbath. We can say, okay, I'm really going to impress God. I'll take a Sabbath. It's like, you've missed it. You've missed it. Moses even talks about this in Exodus, right? This isn't new. He's just saying the way it's applied is new. Remember in Exodus 20, it says, 6 days you shall labor. On the seventh day is a what? Sabbath to the Lord your God. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all is of them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore, the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it what? Holy. You couldn't guess that without it being up there? And made it, I don't know. I got to see it. I'm not going to guess. What if it's something that I didn't think? The Sabbath was a day of rest. So, count them with me. Work, 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 work. What's the seventh day? Work, 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 work. Work, 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 work. You rest. You take a day off. And Jesus comes along and says, that rest is me. That's me. I'm the one that gives you that rest. Now, how you relate to that, it really matters. If we're going to follow Jesus, I want to do what he says to do. These guys wanted to be so obedient to the Sabbath that they made it impossible to do. You know anybody like that in your life? We're going to do this great thing. We're going to make it so difficult to do that you can't ever do it. Awesome. Yeah, I think I'll sign up for that. It's like, I like to run, and people oftentimes are like, man, you want to sign up for a Tough Mudder? And I'm like, no. Running is hard enough. Running is hard. Why do I want to add obstacles to it? Oh, it's cool. At the end, they shock you and then throw you in really cold water. I'm like, no. 5K, 10K, I'm with you. But if they beat me with things halfway through, I don't want to do it. That's them. That's the Sabbath, okay? They're the Tough Mudder group. Let's run a half marathon up a hill and have people throw things at us. It's not hard enough. Imagine if you did it on baseball. It's a Tough Mudder baseball. Every so often, the second base just blows up, or something like that. That'd be awesome. Let's all sign our kids up. Because here's why, though. Here's why they did it. Here's why they were making it harder. One, they didn't believe Jesus who he says he was. Two is they approached God like some of us approach God. I will perform, I will obey, and I will be accepted. Does that sound familiar? It should. That's how we operate in every aspect of our life. I will perform, I will obey, I will be accepted. So we hear a command like take a Sabbath, take a rest, and we think, what exactly do I have to do in order to make that work for me? Tell me precisely. And Jesus is like, you just don't do anything. That's it. That's the whole thing. Okay? But I want to do it exactly like you wanted. No, that's it. That's what you do. You do nothing. Jesus said the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. He is saying, celebrate this thing. But what he is destroying is all the legalism and traditionalism around it. He's saying, I'm here now. Sabbath is almost a synonym for shalom. Almost, very close in the world of words there. It means deep rest. Who needs deep rest? Like right now. Like maybe you're like me. You got a tight 8 hours last night. But you are looking forward right now to the nap you're going to take later today. Like 2-hour couch nap is worth like 8 hours in the bed. Somehow, couch naps are good, aren't they? Nobody likes couch naps? You ever get a blanket on the couch? That's when you know you're committed to that, right? Blanket, shoes off, turn that AC down. That's deep rest. And Jesus is saying, you need to do that more. In fact, he's saying the Sabbath was made for you, not him for that. And then he says, I am the Sabbath. I am rest. The 1 day a week thing, that's a picture. That's just a little glimpse of what Jesus offers in a world where we're all working all the time. When Jesus calls you to rest, he's calling you, yes, he is calling you to take time off, and we'll get into that practically in just a moment, but he is also saying, catch me here, please. Be satisfied in what God has done. Be satisfied. But he's also saying, it is finished. Jesus saves. You know how he saved? By finishing what we couldn't finish. By doing what we couldn't do. When Jesus died on the cross, he said, it is finished. He didn't say, okay, guys, your turn, go to work. He didn't clock out. I don't have to work for that. It is finished. I can rest in Jesus. So I don't want to approach God from I want to perform for you, I will obey you, which I'm going to obey you, but that way you will accept me. Rather, I want to set my life up in such a way that I can rest in who you are. You are Jesus. So part 2, what your life looks like when Jesus is rest. Listen, you know what's interesting about this? We talked about this a year ago, so this will be very interesting. Very interesting because a year ago, right at a year ago, October, I said to some of you, you need to rest more. So I'll be curious as we go over this if any of you actually did it. And if you didn't, that's fine. That's fine. You didn't sin against me, just God. So, you can reboot that today. What your life looks like when Jesus is rest. Who would say that we tend to overwork in our culture? Would you say that? Would you say that about yourself? Just be honest for a moment. Yeah, I overwork. I do too much. To work a lot of hours, put in as much as we can, got to go after it, got to get it done, got to do it, got to attack until we're done, right? We've been taught that and shown that, and I'm not against that. I'm against the overwork part, but I'm not against going after something hard. Our life experience, though, because of that, is often rooted in what? Not how we rest, but what we do. Like, I love the phrase, like, what's your dream? I saw this little video, what's your dream job? And the person was like, I don't actually dream about work. You know what I mean? That's not what I dream about. When I'm dreaming, I'm like, oh, man, I can't imagine having two of these jobs. No. But it's because we tend to equate rest with lazy. Like, you don't take naps. The sun's up. You should be out doing something. And because even they in the New Testament approach God like this, we often approach God like that. I'm going to show you, right? And listen, hear me. Work is good. Work is a gift. We were given work prior to the fall. God gave us something to do. We need something to do. But hard work is good. Being tired all the time is not good. I'm just trying to get into your psyche here, right? Because the lie is that if I work harder, I'll get more. You say, that's not a lie, that's true. Yes, it is. But what I'm saying is that I want you to find your rest in Jesus, not your productivity. That your goal in life is not to look back and look at all the things you were able to do. It's to look back and say, I rested my entire life, everything about me was resting on the work of Jesus Christ. And so I'm able to take a day off. Until I learn to rest in Jesus, even my work is going to be off. Look at Hebrews 4. For if Joshua had given them rest, God would not have spoken of another day later on. So then there remains a Sabbath rest for the people of God. I've heard it said like this: the most mature in Jesus are not those working hardest for him, you know what I'm going to say, right? But those resting best in him. So how do we stop evaluating our life based on how busy we are? Who in here is busy? You're busy all the time, aren't you? Everybody says, hey man, how you doing right now? Busy. Okay, come up, get a book, a dictionary, a thesaurus. Let's find a different word for busy. I'm active. I'm engaged. Stop telling people you're busy all the time. All right? That's just a side note. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. What does my life look like when Jesus is my rest? Will I feel busy all the time? I shouldn't. How about this? I realize when Jesus is my rest, if those guys in the first century had caught this is what they would have said. I realize that God didn't create me just to accomplish tasks. God didn't create me to just accomplish tasks. The point of my life isn't to do things for God. God is the point. He's the point. Sometimes we forget that. We disconnect the purpose of which we were created, like my microphone was just disconnected. Was it? Okay, here we go. Probably because I'm sweating so bad. Just tell me which one of these to grab. Red? Red, unless we can fix it. All right, I'll hold it. You know I don't know how to turn it on. All right, I'm just going to use the red mic. When your life looks like what Jesus is at rest, you begin to realize that if you don't do that, the reason you're tired, the reason you're unhappy all the time is because you are not fully submitting to the rest that Jesus offers. That's one of the things. So you realize that Jesus didn't just create you to do tasks and little menial things for him over and over and over. That is not God's plan for you. So that's the first thing. You realize that God didn't create me just to accomplish tasks. That actually I can spend a day doing nothing except just being with God. That is actually better than me working myself down to the bone. Number two, it shows me that God provides, not me. God is the one providing, not me. Here's another way of looking at the Sabbath. You are intentionally cutting your productivity. You get that, right? Why would you do that? You crazy or something, right? I want to work. Imagine how much more I can get done if I work for 7 days. Oh, my goodness, no. You got to cut a day. You got to reduce your productivity, but guess what? It will go up. It will go up. I mean, Chick-fil-A does it. Seems to be working pretty well for them. You're saying, man, Chick-fil-A's figured out the Sabbath principle, but we can't. You just don't want to do it. What does it show you? When I intentionally cut my productivity, what does it show me? It shows me that God is the one providing for me. I am not providing for me. My hard work is not what's providing for me. Work is good. God gives me things to do. But he is the one that
provides. We tend to think that because we work hard, we will get more. And what God is saying is, actually, you will get more when you rest more because you'll get more of God. So I think it's good to work hard. But I want God to show me over and over and over, and I need it a lot, that it is not my productivity that helps me gain things. It is the way I rest in Jesus. Now, don't get too excited. Some of you might be thinking, like, imagine how much I get done if I never worked, right? Just take 7 days off. Rest. Woohoo, this is great. No, it doesn't work like that. Work is a gift, and we want to do it, and we want to do it well, but we want to take breaks. This will help your life in several ways. I'm going to tell you one, a way in which it has helped me incredibly, and you're going to think it's a preacher trick, but it's not. You know what I'm going to say, right? Tithing. I brought a friend today. Tithing. Tithing means I'm going to give away 10% of what I have. That's what it means. Tithing means that. I actually believe that's the starting point, not the bar. Tithing. The more I give away, the more I show myself, the more I realize that God is the one providing, not my paycheck. It may be somebody else's name on my paycheck, but I work for God. And so the more I give away, the more generous I am, I actually receive more blessing. What did we learn as a church last year? God blesses the part you keep or the part you give away? He blesses the part you give away. So I want to give away the good parts because I know that's what's going to be multiplied and brought back to me. This isn't some like prosperity gospel thing too. I ain't into that, and you know that. But I am knowing, because I can know experientially and I know philosophically and I think I know biblically, that God blesses the part I give away. He multiplies that and gives it back. And so when I give away $1, I don't give away because I just have an extra dollar. Maybe like you, I ain't ever got an extra dollar. I give away because I want to obediently show and realize in my life and teach my son that we give away money because God is the one that provides. So I don't give out of an abundance. I get out of everything. It's a heart issue. Some of you right now, you're arguing with me in your mind. I know that. You're saying, I can't afford to tithe. Get that? I can't afford to give. I would say you can't afford not to. You say, well, what's the exact amount that I have to give in order to be blessed? I would say that is old wineskin thinking. That is trying to figure out exactly the amount of obedience I have to have in order to make God happy. And what he really wants is you. He wants you. We don't perform to gain acceptance. It's like the 6 days. If I do less, I get more. Try it. Take a day off. Sit and do nothing. Give away something. Be generous. And you will find that God will bless you beyond your capability to understand. And if I had another hour, I would tell you story after story after story of things that have happened in my life and things that I've heard that people just tell me when they just were generous and just took time off. It's unbelievable what God will do. What your life looks like when Jesus is rest, you realize that God didn't create you just to accomplish tasks, and he has shown that God provides, not you. Last thing, you find this out. Jesus is my righteousness, not me. It doesn't say Mark saves. Does it? I don't think it does. Hebrews 4 says this, and no creature is hidden from his sight, but all are naked and exposed to the eyes of him to whom we must give account. That is a picture, my friends, of the human condition. Always trying to justify. Always trying to justify. We're always trying to make it better. We're always trying to be more righteous than we really are. We're always, even Adam and Eve, what do they immediately do? They try to cover it up, right? That is old wineskin thinking. New wineskin is this. Jesus loves me because he loves me. I don't earn my way into him. All I do is receive him. It's a gift of grace. And so I can rest in that. That changed my life when I began to apply that. Every area that I operate in changed when I stopped trying to impress God with myself. Just gave in to him and allowed him to be my rest. So, I can rest. You can rest because Jesus is rest. Back to our friends there in the Gospel of Mark. Because they approach God like that, I perform, I obey, I'm accepted. Jesus says that I'm going to take all that and I'm going to turn upside down. I'm going to show you that I'm the one that gives the rest. I'm the one that gives the blessing. Rest in Jesus, you become a part of that. Now, as our team is coming forward, and we're gonna pray some, I want you to know this: the hardest way to live, and the way most religious people live, is like this. Instead of surrendering fully to Jesus, they hear a sermon like this, and they make a checklist of ways they're going to do it. That's totally wrong. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's more work. I would say, look at your calendar and say, on this day, I'm not going to work. Not going to check emails. Not going to return texts unless it's funny stuff with my pals. Nothing. Because the busier we get, the more burdened we get. And you're not getting the benefit of the rest. So here's what I want to do. The Bible says this, because some of you may be carrying this burden of, you need Jesus in your life. And you just heard today that he is rest. And all you can think about is, I want that rest. And so what I would say to you is that you need to receive Jesus as your Savior. You need to actually give everything to him. Isn't it great that he doesn't tithe to us on his forgiveness? He doesn't say, I'm just going to give you 10%. No, he gives it all. Jesus saves. He gives every bit of himself to you. And all we do is come to him and ask for forgiveness. And so if you're here today, or you're watching online, or maybe even if you just now tuned in, you're like, man, how in the world do I go from lost to found? How in the world I'm one of those sick people that Jesus was talking about, that I need him in my life. How in the world do I get to that? And here's how you do it. Right now, everybody here is going to bow our head. We're going to close our eyes. But if you want to receive Jesus Christ as your Savior, then you talk to him right now. You say, dear Jesus, I know I am a sinner. That means I've made mistakes, I've rebelled, I've done things I shouldn't do. I know that. And I believe that you came in humility for me. I believe that you died on the cross. I believe you rose from the dead. Come into my life. Today I receive your forgiveness. Today you're my Savior. You're my Lord. I will follow you. Stay forward.